Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. This is actually the second part of my Coraline research, so if you want to watch the first video, there's a link in the description down below. The first video is about the difference between the Coraline book and film. But in this video, I'll be discussing other Coraline facts and lots of behind the scenes stuff in both the book and the film. So let's get started. We're going to start on facts about the film. It took nearly 4 years to make. Despite there being 30 different animators working on the film at any given time, it took ages, and that isn't even counting all the legal stuff Henry Selleck, the director of Coraline, had to sort out. And of course there's the pre and post production stuff as well. Stop motion animation simply just takes a very long time, and the amount of organisation and production necessary is crazy. Coraline was originally going to be live action. Selleck pushed for stop motion animation to be used instead because the film would be too scary for children if it was done in live action. I agree, can you imagine that? It would be horrifying. However, at the time, Selleck was under a contract with Disney and they didn't want him doing animated films with other companies. He found a way around that though by changing the film's direction, while still keeping Dakota Fanning on to voice Coraline. Dakota Fanning. On the subject of Dakota Fanning, it was apparently a challenge for the film being voiced by her because she was growing up as the film was being filmed. She was 9 when initially meeting Selleck to voice Coraline, but she was 12 by the time she was recording Coraline, and 14 when Selleck was putting commentary for the film. Imagine how she could sound different growing up over the years when the whole of the Coraline film was set in the space of a week, give or take. Coraline was not an easy film to sell. When looking for people to finance the film, it was a difficult task because according to Travis Knight, a producer and lead animator for Coraline, it's got a female protagonist, so clearly boys will not go to see a movie like this, but it's really scary, so girls aren't going to be into that. And it's in stop motion. Nobody wants to see stop motion. They were wrong. Luckily, Laker chose the good marketing technique of not just aiming it at children, but to Neil Gaiman fans, animation fans, and those who like strange characters, just like Coraline. Coraline was nominated for Best Animated Feature Film at the Oscars. The film grossed over $16 million when it was released, and since then it has grossed around $125 million. Wow! Other 2010 Best Animated Feature Film nominees included Fantastic Mr. Fox, The Princess and the Frog, Up, and The Secret of Kells. Up was the one that took that title, which is a film I love, so I can't be annoyed. It was a tough year to win in, so Coraline did well just getting nominated. Over 500 Scottish Terriers were created for the theatre scene in Coraline. Despite this being a relatively short scene, it was one of the longest to create, which is understandable considering that many dogs had to be made to fill all the chairs. 5 versions of the living room were built in production. This was so they could allow them to collapse into the spider's web at the end of the film with the scary climax. The 3D look of the set. In the film, producers purposefully made the real world flatter so that when Coraline went into the other world, it would look more interesting, with much more depth and colour. CGI. One of the very few times the production used CGI in the stop-motion film was for the Starry Night scene where the ghost children are talking to Coraline near the end of the film, warning her of the danger that she was still in. 3D printing was used in a method called rapid prototyping. They modelled Coraline's facial expressions on the computer and they were all printed out so they could be exchanged on the Coraline puppet. There were 8,000 faces printed for Coraline, and just for reference, Jack Skellington in The Nightmare Before Christmas, another animation directed by Selleck, had just 800 expressions made for himself. I guess that's reasonable since he was a skeleton though, and Coraline is an actual human in the film. She needs our expressive abilities. The Mr. Babinski Puppet. The Mr. Babinski Puppet was so top heavy that there was extra support needed to hold him up so he didn't constantly fall over during filming. All the puppets used in the film were auctioned off in 2015. This wasn't even just for Coraline, it also included the puppets for Paranorman and the Box Trolls. A big portion of the money was donated to the Art of Elysium, a non-profit organisation that works to make art a catalyst for social change by bringing creativity and inspiration to children, artists and various populations in need. One of the jobs involved in making Coraline was for someone to knit tiny jumpers. Althea Crome specialises in making tiny knitted clothing, and so she was hired to stitch all of Coraline's jumpers by hand. Apparently it took Crome 2 weeks to knit each jumper for Coraline. The actual Coraline puppet was only 7 inches tall, so imagine the jumper size needed to fit the doll. I can't imagine such intricate work being done, and as a seamstress I've had my fair share of intricate embroidery, but I feel like this is on a whole nother level. Coraline's dad had a wardrobe change. He wore his Michigan State jumper, but at first production was going to put him in a blue University of Michigan jumper rather than the green Michigan State jumper he ended up dressed in on film. Coraline and her parents moved from Michigan to Oregon, so it makes sense for him to be wearing that kind of thing. Bill Mechanic, a producer for the film, stepped in and had it changed to Michigan State, where he attended when he was younger. Despite this seeming such a small detail, the University of Michigan and Michigan State University have a huge rivalry which is apparently engraved in their history. Therefore, maybe it's understandable that Mechanic didn't want to represent the University of Michigan in the film. Hopefully the two universities can kiss and make up in the future though. Wouldn't that be lovely? The animated movers at the beginning of the film are based on 2 important people in real life. The movers are the Ranft brothers, as shown with the logo on the side of their lorry. In reality, the Ranft brothers are actually Joe and Jerome Ranft, 2 brothers famous for their animation work, specifically through Pixar. Joe Ranft sadly died in 2005 in a traffic accident, which was 4 years before the premiere of Coraline. Selleck had previously worked with the Ranft brothers, so Joe's death would have happened near the time of starting to film. The fact that Selleck incorporated this little detail in the film shows he was probably quite close to him and wanted to commemorate him in some way. Considering Joe was an animator, I think Selleck's choice was lovely. The shopping scene in the film wasn't going to be there. The shopping scene is one of the only scenes that happen outside of the Pink Palace, where Coraline and her mum go shopping for her school uniform. Many producers didn't want that scene in the film because apparently it took them outside of the world that was created at the Pink Palace. Yet Selleck insisted that it should be kept in. He thought the scene helped show Coraline's relationship with her mum, and it is the final time they spend together before the other mother takes her. The producers slowly turned towards Selleck's way of thinking when they saw the completed thing. I agree with that, plus it is in keeping with the book version. The string mice. There is a scene with a string of mice coming out of the wall in Coraline's dream, but the sequence had to be shortened because of the pace of the film. Instead, Selleck added the full-length thing in the credits, so at least it could still all be seen. The credits. On top of the string of mice being put into the credits, Selleck wanted people to sit through the credits, so he made it look more fun by adding the string mice and also floating bat dogs. Selleck and the producers changed the setting of Coraline. Originally, the book is set in England, but they decided to change this. Leica, the production company, is in Hillsboro, Oregon. Do you think that's a coincidence that they set Coraline in Oregon as well? The Pink Palace apartments ended up in Ashland, Oregon, a real town by the way. Also, in the film, Coraline moved to the Pink Palace from Pontiac, Michigan, which happens to be where the producer Bill Mechanic is from. British neighbours. Linking back to the previous fact, Selleck wanted to keep Miss Spink and Miss Forcible British like in the book. The fact that the film is set in Ashland, Oregon is quite fitting that the actresses live there, as there is a famous Shakespeare Festival held there. Perhaps this makes sense that they are there. Maybe they had a part to play in the festival, or they are still looking for a part. Either way, it definitely seems like their kind of thing. Selleck doesn't believe that Mr. Bobo had a mouse circus. Of course he does in the other world, but does he have one in the real world? Or is it in his head? I kind of have to agree with Selleck. We'll come back to this though. I have more to say about this character and his background story that isn't explicitly told in the book or film due to it being for children. Henry Selleck's sons voiced two minor characters in Coraline. Harry was the little ghost boy and George was Coraline's friend from Michigan who spoke through the picture frame in the other world. The band They Might Be Giants created a soundtrack for Coraline. However, the film took a darker turn, more in line with the book, so the music written just didn't fit in anymore and was scrapped. Actually, that's not entirely true. One was kept. The other father sang a song to Coraline to entertain and to warn her about the other world. Did you catch that bit?
This piano plays me. Making up a song about Coraline. She's a peach, she's a doll, she's a pal of mine. She's as cute as a button in the eyes of everyone who ever laid their eyes on Coraline. When she comes around exploring, Mom and I will never ever make it boring. Our eyes will be on Coraline.
Sorry, but she said to tell you the food's ready.
Now the facts about the films are out of the way, let's go on to the book. The name Coraline. The heroine's name came from a typo in Caroline. According to Gaiman, I had typed the name Caroline and it came out wrong. I looked at the word Coraline and knew it was someone's name. The Hagstone's powers. In a part of the book, Miss Spink and Miss Forcible invite Coraline inside and end up reading her tea leaves and telling her that she's in danger. Miss Spink gives Coraline a stone with a hole in it and tells her it will bring her good luck. The stone is known as a Hagstone. Actually, it has several names through history, including witchstones, adderstones, snake eggs, hex stones, fairy stones, holy stones, holies, and eye stones. Whew, that was a lot. It's easy to understand the stone's powers when Coraline is hunting for the children's lost souls while trying to escape the beldam, but the stone had also helped before. When the other mother and Coraline are together, the other mother reaches for her and Coraline's fingers close around the stone with the hole in it. Her other mother's hand scuttled off Coraline's shoulders like a frightened spider. The stone seemed to have startled the beldam, and I'm not sure she appreciated this development in attempting to get Coraline to stay with her. Why Gaiman wrote Coraline. Gaiman began writing the book when his daughter Holly was 5 because she liked scary stories. However, he only picked it up again 6 years later to finish it for his other younger daughter, Maddie. He said in an interview, "Holly used to come home from kindergarten, climb onto my lap and dictate these sorts of terrifying horror stories about little girls whose mothers were impersonated by evil witches and would imprison them, and then the little girls would have to get free and rescue their mothers." Can you see where the plot from Coraline came from? Controversy. Many adults said Coraline was too disturbing for children. Gaiman rejects this idea, of course, and it helped that his daughter wanted these stories to be told. Children react to the story fundamentally as an adventure. They might get a little bit scared, but it's an edge of your seat, what's going to happen next, oh scary thing. Because you're giving them a story about somebody like themselves, he said to an interviewer. This went for both the book and the film, by the way. He also mentioned, adults get disturbed, and I think one reason for that is because it's a story about a child in danger, and I think we're hardwired to worry about children in danger. Perhaps he's right, although I think I must have been a super nervous kid because I could barely get through it, and when I did, I still had nightmares, and I also know other people who were terrified of the film afterwards as well. Gaiman's children must be super brave to relish that at their age back in the day. Gaiman's lesson. Gaiman explained that Coraline had taught young readers that being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you're scared and you do the right thing anyway. He also gained a huge applause after saying in a conference, I'm glad I wrote a book that has scary things in it and things that are worth being scared of, and it tells you that you should be brave, that you can persist and you can triumph. The Preface. The preface Gaiman included in the Coraline book was fairy tales are more than true, not because they tell us that dragons exist, but because they tell us that dragons can be beaten. According to him, he was paraphrasing another author, G.K. Chesterton, when writing it. Personally, I can't blame him, it sounds plenty inspiring. Other authors that inspired him were C.S. Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien, Lewis Carroll, Edgar Allan Poe, and so many more. Gaiman says that these many authors have furnished the inside of my mind and set me to writing. The Strangest Book. Gaiman said, it's the strangest book I've written. It took the longest time to write, and it's the book I'm proudest of. After 10 years of Coraline coming out, Gaiman said, I've started running into women who tell me that Coraline got them through hard times in their lives, that when they were scared they thought of Coraline and they did the right thing anyway. So, are there any facts that I missed out on? I found so much that I thought, well, I'm going to have to stop somewhere, surely. In the next part of my Coraline research, I'm going to be focusing on hidden Easter eggs within the film, which is so exciting and it's really interesting. Thank you for watching this video. Like I said in my last video, I do have Instagram and Facebook and TikTok now too, but they're focused on my sewing projects, so if you like costumes, you might like them, and the links are in the description below. Until next time, bye!